Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. All right. Settle in. Maybe you're driving or doing something in your kitchen, or you're taking a little walk. Maybe you snuck a few minutes of rest, just kind of some alone time. Whatever it is, I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for joining me. A lot of leaders come to me for different things. And a lot of the things that I hear is I really want consistency, or I need consistency. I want things to stop slipping. I want to stop repeating myself. I want leadership to feel steadier. And I think the question underneath those things, right, when I think about what it means to be a really good coach and a mentor and a guide, it's what is the question underneath the phrase that the person's asking, right? So when someone says, I need consistency, there's a need there. There's a question that's being unanswered. And in the over a decade of working with leaders one-on-one for hours and hours, I look for patterns of behavior, and I look for patterns of what is underneath the words that are being communicated. And a lot of those patterns are things that I share inside of my book. But what the question underneath this is, what holds when I'm tired, right? Because motivation fades and energy dips and attention gets pulled, and leadership cannot depend on you being on all the time, right? If you have ever wondered why things only work when you're watching, today's conversation is for you. So we've been taught that we need to rely on three things to change: motivation, get people inspired. Early childhood school leadership does this amazing, right? Let's create a professional development day. Let's create hype. We got to motivate our people. We got to get them excited. Motivation. 2, our systems. Document what's happening. Document systems, SOPs, processes, binders, like spreadsheets, all the things. And training, right? Teach people how, right? There's a lot of things of like, my leaders are young, my leaders are green, I need to train them, right? All things that are needed, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with these 3 things. However, and they all matter, but none of them answers the question, what happens on an ordinary Tuesday when no one feels inspired? Do these things still happen? Because that's when leadership breaks down, right? It doesn't break down in big moments. It breaks down in the ordinary small moments that chip away at the very culture that you're trying to create. So I want to explain what a rhythm is, because rhythms are the answer to this question. A rhythm is a predictable, repeated pattern of behavior that doesn't rely on mood, motivation, or memory. Okay, it's mood proof. And a good rhythm has 3 parts. It's pre-decided, it's mood proof, and it's identity giving. So you pre-decide when this is going to happen. You don't renegotiate it. And we'll talk about that a little bit here. And I also explain it very much in depth in chapter 3 of my book, This Can't Be Normal. It's mood proof, which means it doesn't rely on willpower or mood, and it's identity giving. So it shapes identity and culture inside of the organization. A rhythm is not a system. It is not a checklist. It is not a habit. A rhythm is something that happens whether you're energized or not. It signals what matters without you saying it. It trains behavior through repetition, not training or explaining. Rhythms are how humans actually learn what's important inside of your organization. So I want you to think about this, okay? People do not feel safe when rules exist. They feel safe because the pattern of those rules are predictable, right? Children don't feel secure in a household because a parent explained bedtime. They feel secure because the bedtime happens every single day, again and again and again. Children do not rest in the knowing that they belong in this household because parents tell them, you belong, you belong, you belong. They feel like they belong because the parent repeats a rhythm of behavior that signals to the child, you belong here. You belong here. So I have a framework that I talk about. Well, it's not so much a framework. It's more like a sentence. Systems create structure. Standards create clarity. Only rhythms create safety. So a system tells you what should happen, right? This is what should happen. There should be onboarding. This person should, we should do a postmortem. We should have a debrief after this enrollment push. We should do blah, blah, blah. Okay. A rhythm says what actually happens here consistently, right? Because you can have a system for feedback, but if feedback only happens when there's a problem, then the rhythm is actually avoidance. You can have a system for accountability, but if standards get reinforced intermittently, then the real rhythm is uncertainty. You can have a system for rest, but if rest is only allowed when you get burned out, then the real rhythm is depletion. We have a rhythm of depletion inside of our company. No one's going to say that. But that's what the rhythm is, because you can have a system for rest. You can have a process for rest. But if rest only happens when people signal burnout, then your rhythm is actually not rest or restoration. Your rhythm is depletion. When people feel depleted, they can rest. You can have a really great communication system, but if difficult conversations are delayed until someone explodes, then your rhythm is actually fear, not communication, not difficult conversations. You can have a really good system for caring for your staff, but if care only shows up after someone collapses, then the real rhythm is you must overextend yourself here. That's what we do here. In this company, we overextend ourselves. This next one here is just, it was such a stark reality where I was talking to a leader and she was talking about their resilience systems and their endurance and all the things that they do. And I said, yeah, but everyone is expected to carry everything alone, like you are. So your real rhythm is strength means isolation. That to be strong, you must isolate yourself. Because the moment you reach out for support or help, it's weak. So to be strong in this company, you must isolate yourself. And she started crying when she heard that and when I witnessed her in that moment, because it was the first time that she had named out loud to herself that she was unintentionally isolating herself. Even though she was inside of a community of leaders, she still was afraid to signal support or ask for help because she has a belief structure that to be strong, I actually have to be independent. And to be independent, I must isolate myself. I must never ask for help. I must never ask for partnership. I must never ask for support. I must never ask for real accountability. You can have a system for collaboration, but if decisions are always made at the top, then the real rhythm is never fully own anything because the people at the top are going to do it. I spoke to a client who owns $1 billion portfolio of companies and schools. And billion with a B, not million, billion. And we were having a conversation about collaboration and ownership. And he was sharing with me a specific example that happened inside of the company. And I said, one of his people presented an idea, a fully formed thing that they had built. And he looked at it and spent, 10, 20 minutes on it and made it a little better. And I said, okay, so you made it 10% better. Or it's probably not 10% better. You made it 3% better. Okay. But let's say you even made it 10% better. you poached 90% of the ownership. So how much ownership and investment do you think he's going to put into the project next time if when he presents it, you make it always a little incrementally better? They never fully own their work, and which is why everything goes upward to him, right? So for those of you that are listening that are running small businesses or small schools and think that once you have enough money and enough team, the problems go away, they don't. They just metastasize and get much bigger when you're running million and billion-dollar portfolios. It doesn't mean that stuff are not going to get to you, even though he has an entire infrastructure of team and org chart, and he pays brilliant salaries to managers and top level leaders and senior vice presidents and all the things. It doesn't matter. It still goes to him because he never changed the infrastructure. You can have a system for leadership development, but if mistakes feel like they're fatal, then the real rhythm is play it safe. Play it safe. You can have processes that signal, oh, we're a flexible work environment, or we have flexibility. But if grace disappears the second pressure shows up, and now you don't have grace anymore, then the real rhythm is perform, even when it costs you. And one of the chapters in my book on generosity talk about grace. You can have a system for rest, but if rest has to be justified, the real rhythm is you have to earn your peace. People do not follow what you say you value. They follow what it costs them to need something. And they don't follow policies. They follow what happens consistently. They follow the rhythm. And this is why rhythms are so powerful, because they change patterns without this giant confrontation, right? Instead of reminding and correcting and chasing and rescuing, the rhythm does the work. So when something happens predictably, people prepare, people adjust, and ownership increases. And we see this from all of the data, from all of our clients that bring us stories of how when they started to honor enrollment rhythms predictably and consistently, the team started to actually respect the rhythms of enrollment that bring families in predictably and consistently. And they finally stepped out of feast or famine. Rhythms take away overfunctioning, which is where the vast majority of leaders live. So when people know that feedback happens, when people know that standards are reviewed predictably and consistently, there's a lot less anxiety. There's a lot less confusion. There's less emotional escalation because predictability is calming. Even when standards are super high, you can have really high standards, but if there's predictability in how to meet those standards and how to show up for them, and the rhythms help you show up for those standards, your body can rest. You're not bracing for where the next edges. So leaders resist rhythm. There's a lot of resistance in rhythm. I want to name a couple of them here because it's important to know where the resistance shows up. Rhythms ask you to give up on something. When you honor rhythms, it asks you to stop being the hero and the rescuer and the one that everyone comes to. Because once the rhythm is in place, you no longer become the source of information or the source of energy. The rhythm becomes the source of energy. And for leaders who learns to feel valuable by being needed, that is very disorienting. Very disorienting in the beginning. But it's also where real relief lives. Because when a leader finally builds rhythms, they'll say things like, I'm not as reactive. Things don't fall apart when I step back. I'm not carrying everything in my head anymore. And it's not that leadership gets easier. It's you're getting met. You're getting held. You're getting shared ownership. You're getting shared partnership. So if you've been trying to lead with motivation, systems, or willpower, that worked for a season, for a time in your life when that was needed. I wrote the book, This Can't Be Normal, What to Do When Success Starts to Feel Like Survival, for leaders who are tired of holding themselves. They want to build leadership that is steady and anchored, even on ordinary days. This book is where we walk you through how rhythms get built, how they replace overfunctioning, and how leaders can learn to feel grounded and the map back home to themselves. And so for now, I want to invite you to notice. If leadership only works when you're watching, anticipating, initiating, noticing, it's not always a people problem. Sometimes it's a rhythm gap. And when you teach the rhythm and install them inside of your school, and I use the word install intentionally because it's not just about teaching, it's installing the rhythm, everything starts to shift. Thanks so much for joining me. Hey there. If you're the one who notices problems before anyone else does, this is for you. You're the one who sees things first. The tension in the room, the teacher sleeping who just might quit. You're already tracking the consequences. Who will be upset? Who will push back? So even on days that look fine or feel calm, your body doesn't fully stand down. You go to sleep tired and you wake up already bracing. Not because today is chaotic or any day is chaotic, but because something could go wrong. And you know you'll be the one that's holding it. It's the responsibility that can sometimes feel crushing. You stay alert, reliable, and steady because you've seen what happens when things aren't held, when communications slip, when standards soften, when everyone assumes someone else will step in. And because you're so good at holding it, more of it finds its way to you, quietly, gradually, until no one sees how heavy it's become. This is not burnout, and this is not a discipline problem. It's what I call the invisible weight of leadership. If you see yourself in this, or even if your breath changed just a little bit, that's enough. And if you want to keep going and learn more, the opening chapter of my book, This Can't Be Normal, What to Do When Success Starts to Feel Like Survival. My book continues this conversation. You can go ahead and download chapter 1 for free and continue this dialogue. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do 2 things for me. 1, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And 2, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week, and I appreciate that you have joined us.